some seeds they grow differently. You plant it, and similarly, some ideas you can't always. You need to keep things need to know before you bust them out, because
Hmm.
as an example, some seeds they don't need too much sunlight just yet. All plants need sunlight, but too much sunlight at the wrong time will
Yes.
not make that thing even sprout, and that could be related to our ideas. You
Hmm.
expose it to the wrong environment or to the wrong individuals, your idea dissipate. It's like it
Yes.
never existed. When all it is just needed the right environment or the right folks to help you amplify that. So I think there's always ways to relate those two.
The show where we talk about data science in the Caribbean, highlighting practical ways that you can learn, get involved, and create your own impact using artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is the Caribbean Data Science Podcast with Mark Moyu and Jeff Sayon.
Hey, Dion, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you on today. It's been a long, long time coming.
Too long, Mark. Too long. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the consideration and thanks for the welcome. Happy to be here.
Always. So kind of tell me, what are you doing these days? Where you're located and what problems you're sort of hopefully trying to solve, and yeah, just let us know what's going on.
Kick it off, dive in right in. Well, I am, as you know, from Trinidad, proud Trinbagonian, but currently based in New York City, living in Queens, a little way away from the city itself. But yeah, with my spouse and family here, we holding it down in the concrete jungle. As far as day to day, proud husband and father, taking care of business first, with the father at the forefront, the most high, guiding each and every day in these trying times. But I also feel happy and honored and humbled to have a really a job in this day and age, a
Yes.
critical one, and also have lots of opportunities to impact individuals at scale. As you know, we met doing sort of some of that work along those lines, but I'm in a good spot in my day by day. Currently working at Google as a program manager, driving a lot of work in the security engineering space. So I have a little bit of background in program management, now working on security, which, as you can imagine, is very critical in this day and age today. But yeah, just happy to be here and living life.
Cool, man. Cool. So we usually do the show to encourage people from the Caribbean region, and by proxy, I think other people from smaller regions in the world, not necessarily the big countries like the UK, EMEA, and the US, to pursue data-driven careers. And data-driven could be data science, data engineering, tech. And in addition, I think the one thing I want at least listeners at home and the smaller regions to recognize is there's lots of different functions in these big tech companies globally. So what do you think is the impact of all of this technology on the Caribbean region, and what should people at home, both like parents and younger folks, be thinking about for the future?
Great question, Mark. Quite deep diving in already. But technology is the way I really think of technology, and give a bit of background there before diving directly into the question. Technology is designed to help us solve problems. So the simplest example I could think of is a can of food. The
Okay.
problem is we want food, we want to eat it quickly, but sometimes you want to have to go in the garden, you want to have to wash it. Technology has allowed us to package a plant that existed in the ground, grew up, spent time to really have that available in a
Hmm.
can, and you could put it in a pot, you could put it in a bowl and microwave it and stuff like that. So technology facilitated all of that. We could get into electrical engineering, things that created a microwave and all of that, or even the industrial revolution that helped to create that process to take food and can it. So in that sense, technology is really designed to help us solve problems. And as far as the data, we have so many things happening all around us today. We could really leverage technology to consume all of that data and present us meaningful insights that could help improve our lives, or we're simply the detriment of our lives, if I may. But yeah, technology really facilitates an amalgamation of all this data that we have available and presenting it to us in various ways via various services, and being able to manipulate it and do different things with it.
And if you're at home, what would you be thinking of in terms of your future career? And the reason why I ask this, oftentimes we're in the US, we work for these large tech companies, and so we see essentially the future that's coming in more or less one of the most developed places in the world, especially for tech. And what do you think folks should be looking out from a global tech work perspective? Do you think they'll get jobs at home, or should they be looking globally? Any thoughts there?
I think the beauty of the world today, our interconnectedness, all of which technology has helped to facilitate, could allow us to be at home and still have those opportunities far and wide available to us. If you so desire, as you and I have done, the opportunities to allow technology or working in that space to propel us in different directions, do different things, solve even tougher, bigger problems. But being at home, coming from home is Trinidad and Tobago, my beloved Twin Island Republic. From that lens, I would say there's so many things that technology can help us to address, to make lives easier in various ways. One example I think of is this shop that I grew up in, Arima, Tree Line, and there was a shop out the road, like a corner store. In New York, it's a corner store, but there's a shop out the road that I always I would go by growing up. You know, you're getting newspapers, your grandmother sending for some vegetables and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not close to the shop, but if I want, I could actually go and learn about the shop online. You know, there's things that your businesses can now go online. If the shop owner so desires, big up Ralston's food chain, Minimart. If he so desires, he can have his products available online. There's ways to facilitate adding a list of your products and stuff online. So in that lens, business owners can amplify the scale of their business. I'm not in Trinidad, but if I want to find out what's going on the opening hours of the store, I can simply go online and be able to find that information. Things like transportation, as we know, we grew up taking the maxi, taking taxis. There's ways to facilitate that. As you know, there are ride-sharing things that happen in Trinidad and, you know, all those different things. But all of those were just technology designed to solve problems that people experience at scale. And I think there's many. Caribbean is prime example of so many things that technology can be used to solve. It just takes different minds, different individuals to really think through it. You know, and getting foundational skills in technology, not thinking that it's something we can't do, but we should try to do. Nothing is ever hard. It's only ever new. So the more folks we can use to peek at those things, put new minds behind it, I think we'd be well positioned to even have a greater impact across the globe that we have now.
Vibes. And there's this notion of physical products versus digital products. And one thing that the Caribbean sort of has is their culture, and sort of exporting that particular culture to different domains. Do you think there's anything beyond the culture and of that particular type of energy that we can export globally, other than there are physical goods? You know, we do have a lot of good agricultural land down in the Caribbean. So any thoughts on that particular question? If none, is all good. I was thinking
I can think of I can think of this from various lenses, but maybe you mentioned culture, and if I understand correctly, anything outside of the culture that we can export.
Yeah, so culture. So, for instance, if I can host a carnival in different regions, so that is one particular exporting of culture, and there's also fashion as well. So if you make particular products and you sell it outside, I'm just wondering if there is a digital format that someone can essentially distribute globally. And the reason why I think globally is the future of the Caribbean region and the industry in the Caribbean region to some degree will no longer be bound by the physical bounds of the Caribbean versus, you know, we can have global customers now with the cloud, with different types of things, and especially in security to some degree, folks can now participate globally, right?
Yeah. This is a deep one, and you say I may have answers or may not have answers. Maybe I'll use the cultural context to address it, and I really think that's an astute thing that we actually own, and we can stake claim to, coming from the Caribbean, because it's so unique. We this big group of islands, all unique, but still folks can identify, at least most of the world can identify when someone coming from the Caribbean. Usually we get the, hey, you're from Jamaica, you're from so and so. But I think that package in itself, culture, could allow us to look at even byproducts of that. When we think of Carnival as one deliverable that we sort of market for Carnival, in historically, even up to a couple of years ago, you could only imagine going and experiencing Carnival while there, while at the local place. But now there's facilities for you to partake in it, if you may, from wherever you are, from the seat. You could be in a Carnival fete right here.
Mm-hmm.
There's things to facilitate that. You could do virtual reality where you're actually peeking in. It requires you having some headset to peek in. Or you can actually, if you want to do it from where you are, but you want to use things like AR to superimpose a costume on you. You don't want to buy an expensive costume, but you can use those things to do that. And I would say a decade ago or years back, there might have been ideas of it, but it seemed impractical. But now, because of how technology has grown and because we have our unique insights, not many people would think of this as something that's valuable or useful. But I think we're well positioned to have that as something we can consider leveraging technology for and really amplifying the impact of our culture. Scaling it more broadly, taking it to the far-reaching corners of the world, all using technology by the click of a button, putting something up, facilitating that, and folks anywhere being able to access it.
Yeah, it could be real bad. I want to see somebody do a carnival in like Singapore and China and India and thing.
I could join,
Yeah,
man. I could trip down
mean,
right here.
Cool. So let's hop into your high school journey. Tell us what you're like in high school. Were you an extremely studious student? Were you more free-spirited, as some others have mentioned? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah. I when I saw this question in your lineup, I had to give some good thought because I had to dig back, and it's hard to believe how much time has passed, And now I have a young. You ain't had to say it like that, but yeah, I have a 12-year-old son who is on the verge of getting ready for high school soon. So I'm just thinking about thinking back towards how my life was, and now I help to shape a young human, my own offspring, to get ready for that. But thinking back to how my life was, it was I went to, maybe I could start with primary school. I went to primary school in Karapu, RC. Which is where the horse racing facilities are in Trinidad, the major ones. So no lie, I actually wanted to be a horse racing like a jockey for a significant portion of my early days.
Wow. Because
that's what I saw around me.
Yes.
I would drive by going to school in Trinidad back roads, and where the Karapu RC is in Karapu, there was tons of horse farms, tons of farms. So that had a profound impact on me, and I'm still very much connected to nature and want to be around animals. I don't want to domesticate them myself, just cherish them and value them for what they are. But I used to want to be a jockey, and I think it changed somewhere along the lines when I realized there's so much more to see in the world. But Karapu was a great foundation that led me to QRC, Queen's Royal College.
Okay.
And that transition, going from a rural village, if I may, very close, very connected, to going into the big city, that was quite an experience for me. From having to travel from the east, I remember it has helped influence my day to day now. Now I'm a super early bird because those days I used to have to travel from Arima, and if you're not in Arima by 6, you're not making it to school in time. You have to deal with the traffic on the highway. You have to deal with the bus route. So that high school experience was quite unique. I gained some lifelong brothers from QRC, still very much close and connected today, and still some brilliant minds, some individuals who I went to school with at the time. I was like, wow, you get exposed to different ways of thinking, folks who might have grown up differently to you, but that group learning, that collaborative learning, not just for academic lessons, but life lessons. This is when you're a teenager and you're finding yourself. You're thinking all that, but you don't know nothing at all. And being able to navigate that with a core group of individuals really helped to help shape me. And I wouldn't say I was like popular. I did my work. I stayed on top of it. But I think the one thing that I remember most about high school per se was football, like sweat. I loved football, and I played a bit in the early days in QRC, but not too much of the at the competitive level. But I did in my follow up school at Northeastern College. After QRC, I went to Northeastern College, where I was captain there and played a lot of ball. But football it was it was just something that really really kept me grounded, kept me connected. If I didn't play in school, I would play. When I reach home, I would speed home from home to play with my boys who I grew up with. And pivoting to some years forward is only when I actually had an incident where I messed up my knee and I couldn't play soccer for about a year and a half, football. I was like, wait, this thing really used to keep me grounded. I would put everything out on the field, and then no stresses, because it's just on the ball. You just want the ball. You just want to play. You just want to have fun. And it's only years down I could realize how important that time was, that I had that balance of academics, but also a sport that I really enjoyed, that I could have fun with my colleagues and peers. They know different things that you could do. They can identify, hey, Dion, you take that corner because you could cross the ball well, getting a 5 minute over the corner there. Those kind of things. It really helped you in life, because you grow leadership skills. You learn how to be a part of a team, which I cherish so much now, working in technology, because everything is collaborative. You have to be a part of a team to execute and get things done. So I would say high school was, for me, I wouldn't really worry about how I was popular, all of that. It wasn't any of that. It was just about me finding myself and really having fun doing it and thinking about the future. In QRC, I thought about what would I want to do at the next phase. So I thought about going to a whole other direction. In the east, I went to Sangre Grande, which is my place of birth, to go to school. Went with a couple of friends of mine, and we established our own rapport there. Had a great time, met some additional lifelong friends, and from there, that sort of set the trajectory for me to go on to college in Florida A&M University. So while there, I was thinking of all these things where I want to see my life going, but having fun, but continuously tracking against the things where I saw my life going. And last thing I remember about high school is going to a tour of UE, and I literally sat down at a bar in the middle of campus, and I knew for me and the individual I was like, Dion, it's not gonna work for you. You got to do this SATs, you got to do something, you got to figure it out. And it was something for me. But great kudos. I have lots of friends who actually matriculated through the University of the West Indies system, doing excellent, amazing things. I just knew it was something that I wanted. I wanted to be uncomfortable. I wanted to find my own self, like go to the doldrums and really dig out something that, that if I'm too comfy, I was afraid that it wouldn't come out of me and I wouldn't find my life purpose. And actually still on that path, trying to find my life purpose day by day.
Interesting. So lots of things in there, and I wanted to tease out a couple of things. So I think I had a similar experience when I went to UE, and for those listening who are not from the Caribbean, UE, University of the West Indies, is sort of a Caribbean campus there, and there's one in Trinidad, and I believe there's one in Jamaica as well. And I had similar experiences. So in high school, you got to go study there, and you got to see students, and it was always, in my mind, a big party. Like any college to some degree is a big party, but I think going to a college in the Caribbean is like party accelerated as well. And the fact that I knew, at least for me, just sharing this story, I had a really addictive like personality, meaning whatever I was doing, I was gonna go 10 million %.
100%.
Yeah. So I was like, I think my dad, credit to him, and the reason I'm bringing this story up is at least for maybe folks who have parents who are thinking of knowing your child and like how you have to manage them. I think my dad saw in me, hey, this boy, he'll do some kind of stupidness if he go to UE. Like I need to get him out of here and expose him to something different. So it's interesting that you had that perspective of, hey, going to school here will not necessarily benefit me personally because of maybe how it's structured or maybe the outlook that you had. So there are two threads there, right? There's one, what should students at home, right, in the Caribbean region be thinking of? All right, well, I might not have financial means to go away and sort of make a particular career. What should they be thinking about? And then also the students that are thinking of, hey, I do maybe have financial means, or I'm pushing for a scholarship, what should they be thinking about in terms of targeting schools, etc., etc.?
Yeah, that's a great one, Mark. And similarly, family plays a huge role in helping to formulate what you even think of yourself. So kudos to my amazing family for the support, because when I said, "Hey, I want to go there," it was not something that we thought about regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, and even I'm trying to channel what I even share with my kids now when they think of career, what's the next step? don't think about don't necessarily think about what school you want to go to first or where you want to go to school. Think about what problems you want to solve. I know my nature is to learn a lot. I like going far-reaching places and then sharing that back in some ways.
Hmm.
That's why I fly drones now, because I can send my drone far, far away and collect those visuals and share them in various ways. I think I always had that in me, in wanting to go out and see the world, wanting to find global problems and finding a way to uh, sort of localize those problems. Like, this is a big problem. How is this unique to Trinidad? And it informs a lot of my day-to-day work. Working in a big global company, I always think of what would this big thing look like if a Trinidadian was to use it and stuff like that. So I'm happy and honored to be a part of conversations in support of that. But as far as folks thinking about what they want to do, I just think it boils down to what problems you want to solve. If you know you're really passionate about growing Karaili, growing cauliflower, and Trinidad has the best place to facilitate that, there is nothing wrong with that. Just think about how you can be the best Karaili or cauliflower grower, and those opportunities seem to come your way. You might get a scholarship from somebody in Africa saying, "Hey, we're the best cauliflower growing industry building in the world, and we heard you're doing a really, really good job in Trinidad. We would love to have you." Those sort of opportunities come your way once you really try to hone in on what you're good at, what you want to do, and those sorts of things come to you. For me, I know I considered UE at one point, but I know I was fond of the you would hear the in America you could become anything you want to be once you put in some effort. Before I even
Yes.
landed here, and that resonated with me. I did readings, I did American history, I learned about how things progress with different types of individuals, and that had an effect on me. And I sort of said, when I work towards coming here, I could really amplify my ability to solve different types of problems. I get exposed to it, and I could be able to solve them. And that led me to doing electronic engineering at FAMU. I was always fond of electronics. There's a huge background story beyond that. I got an old mixer from a friend, a family neighbor, and fixed it up. And ever since then, got involved in music and had an understanding of electronics and stuff, and also studied them a bit in high school as well. So that led me to engineering. But all in all, just think about what you want to solve, not what you want to be, but what problems you want to solve in the world. You could be a DJ, you could be a radio announcer, you could be a taxi driver, doing multiple things, but as long as it's premised on things that could bring value to people, problems you want to solve at scale for individuals.
I feel like we need to go and do a career around to all these schools, because just between me and you, ain't nobody come and tell me in high school, think about what problems you want to solve. I have never in my life heard that as an advice in high school, and I find it quite profound, to be honest. Other than, oh, what are you going to be, like what position you're going to get, and boxing you into that, versus bringing this notion of problem solving. And I think what's beautiful about that particular statement is, in traditional education, you don't necessarily learn to solve problems. You're like, okay, here's a piece of a problem, and here's maybe how you go about solving it by reading these paragraphs, learning these techniques, and okay, you can solve this one piece. But in the real world, there's just so many different facets to the problem that you might not necessarily get exposed to the raw nature of the problem in school. And I think it really jades a lot of students when they come out and they're like, oh, my employer is asking me to do this. This is not on my job description. I don't want to do this. And you sort of start to freak out. Any thoughts there that has helped you from when you were younger to now to live in that ambiguity of being a problem solver?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. My day-to-day as a program manager, I sort of wait for things to fall in my lap, like problems. My day-to-day is, as a program manager, I run multiple projects in various phases. Some of them close to the finish line, some of them running. and I always have like a bubble there waiting for new problems to come. And I think the term I would use is resilience, and that comes a lot from our upbringing, learning from a grandmother who created it, who did everything for her family. No problem we couldn't imagine. I don't think as a kid growing up, even imagining problems around us because we were sort of shielded by it. And I think that can be attributed to learning resilience from a young age, knowing that there's great things behind problems you solve. And things are never really difficult. They're just new. The more you look at it, the more you steer it. Like the problem could be this cup here. You look around like, you look at it this way, and the more you could embed yourself with it, you could find ways around it. So I think resilience and persistence go a long way in doing that. Like saying, I ain't gonna get it today, but maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. Like giving yourself grace to know that it's not always going to be smooth. If the road too smooth, you're going to have accidents. You need a little roughage to kind of slow things down and sort of go that way. So I think it's resilience, persistence, and just being graceful with yourself, knowing that things will fail, but there's great things behind failure. If you're not failing fast enough, then you're probably not living the life that you're meant to live. So you need to fail, and that's a part of it. Tackling problems, getting through them, and some of them you need to be okay knowing that you're not going to solve it. Know when to drop this problem and be like, just leave you there. Maybe I'll come back to you in a while. Adding it to your backlog. You don't have to solve everything. No,
right now.
Today. Add it to your backlog. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up the thread of agriculture. So what's interesting is our ancestors were technically in the agriculture business to some degree, or they spent a lot of time outside. They spent a lot of time growing food or interacting with that particular type of environment. And I think in the modern day and age, we may have gotten separated from the land, separated from the earth to some degree. And I'm very interested in like world powers and how they control things and all that stuff. And it's very interesting how if I target your water, you're done. If I target your food supply, you're done. And what's your thoughts on younger people focusing on becoming food producers? Because at the end of the day, if you could produce your own food, like no one could necessarily, that's real freedom to some degree, some parts of freedom as well. And so I did look at your degree. Well, it says Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. So does that have a component of it as to why you brought that up?
That's an interesting intersection of points you brought together there. Okay. So a little bit about FAMU. It was a historically Black college and university. It was when slavery was ending, the governments at the time actually allowed certain institutions to get land grant arms. So schools were actually dedicated to be built there. FAMU is actually built on an old hospital, and this is in the 1800s. And so the name is not a facet of my degree, but it is profound in the name, being an agricultural and mechanical university because of the agricultural undertones of where the school is actually located. It was built on top of a slave plantation in not so many ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a facet of the agriculture there. Yeah.
Okay. That part I didn't see that one coming, but okay. Now I know more there. But still, from that perspective, what are your thoughts on growing food? And the reason why I asked this is like we're all in tech, Google, blah blah blah, and you're like, my food arrives on the table. You brought up the canned example. I could throw it in a microwave. To some degree, there's, I don't want to say there's an ignorance. There is an absence of deep thought about how the hell is my food getting to my table. And one of the examples I like to bring up is how many eggs do you think are consumed on the planet every day?
Yeah.
I don't know. It freaks me out, but
You think I appreciate this conversation because I consider myself a farmer. Actually, just this morning I was looking at a plot of land that I have in New York that I dedicate for growing all the way from spring all the way till fall till November. Nice. My garden's still running. I think we are what we eat. We really are what we eat. What we put in our bodies go a long way. We don't even know the impact of some of these things that we ingested now until years down the road. So I think we essentially are what we eat, and I think it's so important to think about that day by day. And I go back to my kids as an example because I use them sort of not living vicariously through them, but teaching life lessons while also learning how they consume information. And one thing that I do monthly is use something like moringa, this seed, a super plant. I use it for tea, I use it for seeds, but the first of every month, they have the regular vitamin. I was like, come moringa time. And they don't like it because it's not the best tasting thing. But I go and I use their modern stuff and I say, okay, Google, tell me about moringa, and it'll tell you all the ailments that it cures, what it's good for. Even recently, my daughter had a little belly ache, and I was like, you didn't have a moringa in like 6 months, because when they have it affects them. So I think thinking about all of that, I can, if in another world, I actually think I could have plots of land and just be a farmer, bro. I can't even express it. I got some moringa seed pods and I started growing them. I actually sold some plants, actually getting involved in the local farmers market this year. I sell my sea moss for the nutritional purposes, not sell. I have my list of individuals who come to me, do you have any sea moss on deck? But I think it's so important to think about what you put in. My kids often, they have their daily vitamin. I say, Daddy, you don't take any vitamins? I'm like, no, I get it from the food that I eat. I put huge portion of veggies and fruits, make smoothies regularly. So I think a combination of knowing what's important, what's good to eat. Red fruit's good for the blood, red things good for the blood, green things are sources of protein, not always the meat. I think it's so important to think about all those things. And the more you can be self-subservient, I have all them seeds ready, I telling you, bro, to put on. And grow I have a little plot that I learn in how to continuously hone my skills. So when I'm ready to go in the bush and plant up my thing and help serve the masses with good quality stuff, I think it goes a long way. And I have a lot of farmer friends. They often remind me to look at the seeds that I'm using. So that's even a big factor in it. Because if you don't have quality seeds to grow stuff, the food that you're growing is not going to have the value that you think you're getting in it, And we could go for days and days thinking about that. They have fruits now that don't even have seeds in them. So we need to think about
interesting.
All of that.
I share very similar pursuits. I think my dream is to own just hundreds of acres of just fruit, like, because in the Caribbean we have such beautiful, just amazing fruits that you don't necessarily get everywhere else. And I've always been fascinated by coming back to the land and going up in the bush and having a little river and thing. And I think that's the one part that I've enjoyed a lot. And I think the reason why this particular conversation is important, as we drive more and more into this technological world, to some degree we lose, it's not necessarily a human aspect of ourselves. We just lose that. We may lose that particular component. And so there's a health side of that you're using to sort of serve you. But then the interesting thing that I struggle with in planting that is beneficial for everyone to listen to is growth and allowing something to take time to get a reward. That particular lesson. Talk to me about that and how maybe the process of planting allows you to maybe solve problems that are maybe longer scale, that you have to do this little piece. So I'll open it up to you.
We could go deep here in a while. You're opening that kind of piece. Well, so in one way, go ahead.
No, I say Bushman is a real thing. So teach us.
Yeah. So you need to know about the different what you're growing, and they all start from seeds. A simple thing that I don't think people commonly think of in planting a seed is how deep it needs to go in the ground. That's the first thing. Certain seeds need to grow deeper. Some need to be exposed to the surface a little bit more, but all they really need is warmth, a little bit of moisture, and cool, dry air. At least most seeds, and balancing that temperature. Balancing all those factors, you need to think about this plant and what you can provide to that. So in some way, I use my program management skills as to know I'm growing multiple different plants and really think about what the unique needs of them are.
Yes.
And boiling all of those up, they think about how I need to plan my day as a farmer. Like I also need to plan, I have my work day, I have my kids and stuff, but I need to dedicate some time to think about these things. So as I was mentioning, I'm in a prep phase now. My garden isn't ready. It's still cold, but I have my seeds ready. They're drying. Certain ones need to dry. Certain ones need to be a little moist before you put them down. So I have those set aside, knowing that they need to get a little moist. You know, like the red bean experiment we do in primary school. Those things they don't teach us enough of it, bro. They don't.
Mhm.
You know, but I learning because I can't say I lean on all those lessons and you know, growing up you would see family members growing stuff, but now I actually get to do it on my own, put it in the ground and include my family as a part of it too. So there's that, and really giving it time. Certain plants will take a longer to germinate, certain are long term. Like the moringa tree that I actually have a tree that I grew from seed. I had to bring it inside, and then I brought it outside last week. But then the cold weather comes, so I had to bring it back inside, knowing how that plant grows and knowing the stimuli. It takes a bit of research, and you care, you love them, you talk to them. I have so much respect for plants and trees and stuff. Far reaching, like I remember being in the redwood forest in California, traveling,
Yeah, that
and
is beautiful.
the astounding beauty, Mirwoods, one of my favorite places in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about these trees that have been here for, I don't even want to say, I won't say centuries, but at least a few of them, maybe a century or more.
Yes.
Great respect, starting from an acorn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing, when we want to grow, you often have to think about the roots, like what roots you need to grow. And I'm so happy that I share this with my kids, the acorn example for those redwood trees. It starts with one seed, but the roots actually need to go down as much below the surface as you see on top. So that big tree you see on top, just imagine how the roots actually
roots
grow
gotta
with
be
each
big.
other. And the two things I would look at these forests are, they all start from one seed, is that they all interconnected. You would see the mother of the forest and the father of the forest. Those are the main, those are the core. And I don't need to bring in gender into it, but that's what they call it, the mother of the forest and the father of the forest. Those are sort of the leaders, and they actually help shape what this forest actually becomes like, because there's a whole underlying network of all these roots connect with each other, and also above the surface how they communicate. It's so fascinating, man. It's amazing and unreal. And we probably diverted a bit from the farmer process, but I think it's important to understand how seeds themselves can lead to different things, can lead to a fruit tree, can lead to a big tree, and how they work in tandem with others to actually create these things that we see, the forest. Because I could plant one tomato in my backyard, and if the other plants don't want a tomato to grow, it's not going to grow.
Interesting. Whoa. Okay, this should get early. My line. So you said the story of the roots. So there's some motivational talk I heard. I think it's the Chinese bamboo plant or something like that, where
and the fern,
I believe so. Yeah, for the majority of its life, you won't barely see it break the ground, and because it's really developing its root system and getting that as big as possible, and then within the short period of time, I think 3 to 6 months or something like that, it'll grow 10x, some stupid amount of height. And why that story or why that analogy is important for people thinking of their careers is you might just be thinking you're grinding and doing this little thing and not seeing a lot of things happening, and then all of a sudden maybe a particular opportunity and your skills have come to a particular level, and you get that one opportunity, and then boom, you sort of take off. Have you had moments like that in your career?
Definitely, bro. Still happening now.
Okay,
and I think your mention of that reminded me of the story of the bamboo and the fern. They're both growing up next to each other. I think an Asian folklore or something. Bamboo and the fern growing up next to each other. The fern catch itself, sprout quickly, start to run up the trees around it, watching the bamboo. She's like, hey, why you ain't growing by? What going on with you? I climbing up. Next week, the fern's still going, wrap around another tree. Fern just growing, bamboo just stay like a little shoot. After some time, the fern really wondering what happened then. Bamboo not saying anything, just taking his time there. When all this time, the bamboo is actually growing its roots to support its exponential growth that was forthcoming in the near future. So it's just lessons in life, and tying back to what I was mentioning before, just knowing your path or having an idea of your path and keeping that true to yourself. The bamboo knew it had to grow big and tall, maybe even higher than the fern, but it can't take time to grow quickly because then it will fall down.
Yes.
It had to take time to form its roots. Whereas the fern, It's light. It's lightweight. It don't necessarily need roots. Its roots probably would grow along the hose that it's running along or something like that, you know? So that's what that story reminded me of. And for me, pivoting back to your question around real world examples, there are so many ideas or things that you would want in your life. And I look at them as little seeds and plants. And you have to think
Okay.
about how you bring those things, how you launch those things. I have some ideas of things that I foresee happening, but the seed still under the ground. It's not warm enough yet. You had to moisturize it. The earth isn't right for it. I probably had to move it around. Just like we have many, many things going on in life, I can relate them to being plants and trees day by day. Even money. You know, you plant the right tree,
Mm.
you print
It'll
money like
grow.
whoa. You could have all these ways to think of life and relate them to agriculture and plants and trees. But I think for me, what I have done is really have an idea of different things, different areas I would like to go in life, where I would like my life to go. Of course, those things are built on having impact to others, helping others improve their lives. So my ideas are mine, but they're really to serve others.
Mhm.
And think about, you know, I'm continues to grow as an individual in my career. And when the time is right, I would be able to plant that right seed at the right time. That I have that seed probably in my back pocket here at the right
Yes.
time that could help bring shade to generations to come or to help provide different types of fruits to generations to come. So I think
Mm.
there's always ways to think about agriculture and farming and relate it to our day-to-day life. I'm happy that I have that intersection in my mind. And hopefully in this conversation and other conversations, you know, it could help others to see their own ideas and relate to them that way. And one thing to also think about is that you know, some seeds they grow differently. You know, you plant it, and similarly, some ideas you can't always. You need to keep things neat to know before you bust them out. Because
Mm.
as an example, some seeds they don't need too much sunlight just yet. All plants need sunlight, but too much sunlight at the wrong time will
Yes.
not make that thing even sprout. And that could be related to our ideas. You
Mhm.
expose it to the wrong environment or to the wrong individuals, your idea dissipates. It's like it
Yes.
never existed. When all it is just needed the right environment or the right folks to help you amplify that. So I think there's always ways to relate those two. And yeah, farming is a way, man. I hope to check out your farm one day. Happy that you
Yeah,
share
yeah,
that with
yeah.
me.
Trust. I buy some land and thing all up in Wyoming and all kind of madness. So
Wait.
I try that thing. I try that thing. So
Can't
l-
even have the vibes.
how you mean? You did electrical engineering, okay,
Yes.
and then you did computer science. So tell us why you switched from electrical engineering to computer science. And my jealousness here, I did chemical engineering and systems engineering, and I was looking back. I wish I did computer science just because I think there's a freedom that comes from knowing to code really well. And not necessarily only knowing to code really well, but having that ability to create something and to control robots, essentially programs are robots. And you have this robot army that you can command to do certain things for you when you're not sleeping. And when it comes to sort of wealth, there was some definition around true wealth is, or the people that are truly wealthy make money while they sleep. And this notion of having code is one ability to do that. So in your education, more formally in college education, why did you choose to study electrical engineering and computer science?
So one bit of clarification. I actually
Oh,
studied electronic engineering
electrical.
technology. No, it's fine. In some audiences, I just say electrical engineering for simplicity, but I think this
Yes.
is appropriate to differentiate between them. So I did electronic engineering technology. Did lots of it's similar to electrical engineering, but what the degree entails is a lot more hands-on stuff. So
Mm,
I can take apart a board. I know LRC circuits. I know how my doctor in work with a resistor in tandem with a capacitor to really fluctuate the flow of electricity. That degree really allowed me to not just theoretically understand the things involved in engineering electronic or electrical systems, but really to build them. It was a huge hands-on part of it.
wow.
Made radios. I made AM FM transmitters, and my senior design project was actually infrared. Um, infrared audio transmitter and receiver. And it's going back to my background, the problem I wanted to solve by this specific project was thinking you're lying down in your bed. Somebody could use 40 years old, you're lying down in your bed, you want to watch TV, but you don't want to hear you don't want to disturb somebody next to you, or you just need it in your ears. So this was in the before 2010 or so, and Bluetooth was not as prevalent, but different communication mechanisms to transfer audio between different systems. So that was what I enjoyed doing. I really liked the practical aspect of it. While in college, interestingly enough, I had a Dell computer. I think I still have it here. That would die so much. It died a lot, man. And I was on scholarship, but I really couldn't afford to get a new one. So I had to fix it. And I actually learned a lot about fixing them by having to get my own system up and running. I don't want to go in the library. I need to fix my computer. So I actually honed a lot of my IT skills by fixing my own devices. And also I started going to Best Buy and like poaching people, like honing their skills even further by charging $40 to re-image machine. Yeah, Best Buy was 90. I would go in the line and say, hey, you need, wait for this thing that's starting up. And so you could swap out a quick hard drive in a matter of seconds. You have OS images. It was easy to slap an image on a device back in those days. So all those different skills, things that
wow.
I think I was very innovative and an entrepreneur. I think I had like a small tech company at the time fixing these things, but I couldn't scale. I started getting emails. I shut it down one time because I needed to focus on school. But all in all, those practical engineering skills are what I value most about that degree. It was a really, really worthwhile experience. Springing forward a bit, being an international, I had like my OPT period, what's it called? Optional practical training. So 2.5 years, I had to think about what I wanted to do during that time. I found a great opportunity at the Department of Health where I was in college. I know I wanted to do my master's, but I actually started as a analyst and then worked my way up to become working right under the State Surgeon General for the Department of Health in Tallahassee, Florida. So the headquarters for DOH, handling all those emergencies that would happen. We actually built up electronic systems in the bushes of Florida in support of preparing for emergency disasters, ensuring that the hospital network, the DOH network, could still run during that time. So tech skills, practical tech skills from school, doing some IT stuff, which started to make me realize, wow, there's a component of this that involves people. Because if you're in a lab building stuff, you're often delivering that to your supervisor who in turn selling that as a part of a product. But IT at the Department of Health really allowed me to see like, wow, there's this whole other part of technology that involves information. And what I learned was that people only know IT exists when something's broken. If all the time you could print, the minute you know that, wow, this way that I printed, it actually have a code that running from my computer to actual printer way. And the minute that connection is broken, there's needs a human at the time to help you figure that out. So that's what IT allowed me to do. A huge customer service, because it really is the intersection between people and technology, ensuring that they can do that. So I honed those skills. And then when it was time to go back for my master's, I said, I have the practical skills, I have the people skills. Let me dive in and hone in on my software skills. And I'm happy that I did it. I really, really grew outside of myself. At those times, technology was still growing. It's still scaling before it. And I did things like built rockets. My team actually won a NASA competition was it Alabama, not Tuscaloosa. Was it Huntsville? Yeah, Huntsville, Alabama. That's where the station was. I remember being the only international student there. Couldn't even get on the base. But I was a part of a team for a rocket competition, NASA, and they say, you know what, they didn't get to go on. The team really doubled down, and we actually won that competition. The mission was to fly this rocket up a mile, not over, and actually run some experiments. We built an Android app. We actually took some pictures when it got to Apogee, took some pictures, 360 and stuff like that. So all of that we did during grad school. We won the project, beat up a bunch of them other schools who spam you and they win it. Rocket was called Blue Diamond. We actually sent it up 5270 feet. I don't think that record has been broken yet. We didn't go over the mission objective, which is a mile 5280, but we got our experiment done and we went up as a recoverable rocket, flying it in peanut fields in Huntsville, Alabama, wild stuff. But all in all those experiences, I knew I knew that in order for me to be effective in the future, thinking about the future, to be sort of well-rounded in technology, I needed hardware, I needed people skills, and I needed software skills as well. And all of those still inform my day-to-day. I still try to get involved in hardware projects. I still have my breadboard and all my circuit components. I could whip up something quickly. I do my customer service pieces in my day-to-day. Did that initially when I started at Google, but also help family members, multitude of family members who have all their tech issues. But I try to wrap up my son to sort of tackle some of those so he can hone some of his skills as well. And then in my day-to-day, I working deep in a tech company where there's lots of software involved. I don't necessarily am tasked with coding, but I need to have an understanding of really, really complex software systems and architecture and infrastructure, and be able to drive projects as a program manager involving either changes to those that infrastructure or leveraging some of those services to new customers or new teams internally and externally, but an amalgamation of many different things that led to this Dion that's sitting in the seat today. And I know I'm constantly evolving, but using all of that and using what I know now, still hoping to have impact in various ways in the future, you know?
Whoa. There's lots to unpack there. First, there's a hypothesis that I have, such that coming from the Caribbean region, because we live in these multicultural environments, we have the ability to relate to people not in a more effective way. It just to some degree comes very natural to us to integrate across races or whatever cultures. It doesn't really matter. We just lime in and we vibe, right? How has that particular trait, if that is the one, led to success in your career? Because the reason why I bring that up, you're saying you going in a line and talking to people in Best Buy, hustling to push your business. I'm sure in the Department of Health as well, everybody knowing, hey, Dion, so and so and so, you're talking to people. So how is that in combination with your tech skills? And the reason why I bring this up is there is traditional people-facing roles where it's completely non-technical. There's purely technical roles where you might not see a person for a very long time other than your manager. And then there's this chasm or space in the middle that I think very few people can play in. But if you can play in there, to some degree, sky's the limit. So tell us about your journey or those blends of skills, I say.
Yeah, that's an astute observation of where I fit into this broad spectrum of anything you could be in life. But I think you hit the nail on the head, because I actually enjoy thriving there, as you mentioned before so astutely. It's very ambiguous. You never know whether your skills will be needed for hardware or software, just to talk to somebody. But I think what's ground me is just a perpetual need to be helpful or to help others as much as possible. When someone comes to you with an issue, they just need help figuring it out. And I use that in my day-to-day. When in technology, when I'm on the hardware side, it's really a matter of different technical systems wanting to talk to each other. And you can't just like stick them together. They're like magnets. So it needs a human piece of it to sort of gel that, to actually make the human connection first. Like, hey, your team has this, my team has this. Let's meet in the middle. They can't just join, but it requires relationships. So lots of relationship building. I thrive in knowing that I strive to have a broad network. This is how we even having this conversation here. Initially meeting Kyle Maloney a while back, and one of my friends actually said, "Hey, Dion, you should talk to Kyle," and that sort of thing there. So it's really his relationships and wanting to be helpful that really helped to drive me there, and it has taken me unimaginable places. One example is the White House, where I had a rotation with doing tech stuff during my time in when I initially started at Google. I worked in this thing called Tech Stop, which is sort of like where you go to your first day to your last day, helping you get access to your account, helping you with any technical issue that you might have in your day-to-day. There's this service called Tech Stop that Googlers can go to, and we are trained in helping them with any issue, or if not, escalating it to the right team. And as part of that experience, it was a fixed-term residency program, 26 months. You have to do 2 rotations. I actually created my own rotation to join this team that I was interested in. And a part of that team, like a few weeks into the rotation, I had like hardware skills, which I knew of. I also had like people skills, being able to communicate, I hope effectively, hope people understand what I'm saying out there. But an opportunity came to me and they said, hey, this thing that we're building, we need to go to the White House. And I actually met Michelle Obama. And at the time, it was a virtual reality app that took kids on virtual field trips. It's called Expeditions. It's now folded into like more Google, like broader Google products, the arts and culture product. But I got to show Michelle Obama how to use this thing simply because I had a technical understanding of the inner workings of this phone, this app, this thing working in doing a bunch of seemingly simple things, but so much happening under the hood.
Yes.
So I had an understanding of that, and being able to help my team at the time that I was a part of, because I was probably best positioned to go do that. New on the team, not much to do yet. It's fixed like a 3-month rotation as part of it. So I could save the team time by having engineers focus on what they do best, coding, making sure this product is more effective, having the senior folks focus on even more complex issues. Well, just let Dion go to the White House and figure this out. And I think that is one of the moments that really allowed me to tackle tough problems head on, because it was not comfortable. I didn't feel fully confident. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? What are you even doing here? Why you say I could do this by Dion? But all in all, it worked out well. I'll never forget the moment meeting the former First Lady, shook my hand. And as you could imagine, at that time, there weren't many melanated folks, as I like to say, in the building. And there were a few others. That were a part there, and I know if I were to meet her again, she probably would not forget that experience, because there were literally only a few of us there at the time. And then being able to communicate helped at the time, and with the advice that I had made it needed to make a particular sound, and the sound could be jarring, like this beeping. So I remember the Secret Service with their M16s were like, hey, hold up, what the ass going on here? You know, not so much words. I had to explain the technical nuance of me needing to ensure that they are in sync, they were operating together, and alleviated that issue. So communication skills, people skills came across like on the fly there, knowing what exactly to tell them to sort of reduce the situation and sort of, get the job done, get the mission done. So I really enjoy innovating, working in ambiguous spaces, and using an amalgamation of all my different skills to, have impact. We ultimately led millions of kids using that foundational period to go on virtual field trips all across the globe. So still one of my pride and joys, and one of the my favorite moments of all time, even though it was a matter for a couple seconds or minutes. But a story for a lifetime,
Yeah, most certainly. Whoa. One of the things that I find interesting about your story is, so first of all, you got a scholarship to come up here.
Yes.
You got a scholarship through SATs or from the government?
Yes. SATs. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a college fair. Yeah, there was a college fair in Trinidad, and FAMU offered me a skull. I couldn't even spell Tallahassee, bro. I didn't even know about the school. But I leaned in and it connected with my spirit, and my mom, familiar support. She's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, don't worry about this. I got this. And now it's where I am now. Now my entire family, my kids, they were born in Tallahassee, and they see it as an option. Like, hey, we're future Rapplers already. I don't want to drive them in that direction, but they know that's an option already available to them, So yeah, but scholarship to FAMU was my inception into the US education system.
Kudos to you, man. Every time I try to sit SAT, and I think the reason why I bring this up, especially for the students in high school and college, a big part of bloody success is just applying yourself. It has nothing to do with abilities, legitimately just shutting up and doing the work. And I think only later in my life, being forced to do a PhD, I learned the skill of shutting up and doing the work for a very long time. And like you're saying, when you hit the wall and you don't know if you're going to solve this today, okay, tomorrow I'm going to try to solve it. Yeah. And that particular type of resiliency is quite interesting. So you entered Google as an IT resident. And I think this is very important to highlight, because most people that enter Google, at least when you see it, software engineer. And that's like the only thing you think about in your participation in Google. So were you targeting them at school, or they found you in like a career fair? What was your journey to Google?
So always a backstory to this, bro.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it started in my graduate program. As I said, you're thinking about where you want to go, and Google actually was not initially on my list. I always
Mm-hmm.
saw it as something that, oh man, that happens to other people, but not me.
Yeah, I was the same.
But
Yeah.
I still wanted to do the work, and I think we have a similar trajectory in our way by being a similar experiences, I should say, by being
Mhm.
rejected by Microsoft, because I actually interviewed with Microsoft quite a few times,
Okay.
twice to be exact,
Me
all the
too.
way out in Redmond. The dejection of driving back in snow
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that, oh man, you saw this as something that could unlock even more greatness,
Yes.
but nothing against that opportunity. It just wasn't for me. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, my seed was not supposed to be planted there. I could look back at it and see, but at the time you couldn't tell me like my life is doomed. What am I gonna sell nuts on the highway or something because this tech thing ain't working out. But all in all, the resilience goes a long way
Mm-hmm.
because I was actually doing research. In my grad program was I wanted to find an area that probably no one studied as well. And
Mm-hmm.
two things you hit on, I want to touch on, just getting it done. I had an advisor. He's like, Dion, no one is gonna read your freaking thesis when you're done. Just get this stuff done and graduate, bro. Don't worry about it being perfect. And that stuck with me for a long time. I think the term is
Mm-hmm.
GEMO, GEMO, good
Mm-hmm.
enough, move on. He was
Oh.
like, Dion, this is good. Don't wait to perfect this. This is good. Get it done. But I think what's even more interesting to your area, your space, and I thought about that is I was building conceptually these wireless systems. So a network of sensors. So I think I started with like socks and the wrist and stuff. So taking your bodily functions, taking those inputs as sensors and having an aggregator somewhat send that to a hub, either
Mm-hmm.
an app or some device. So I was making the sensors, and the school was like, "That's all well and exciting, but I don't know how you're gonna build it." So I had to simulate it. And my manager,
Interesting.
my advisor at the time was like, Dion, I don't know what you're gonna do, but you need to graduate and you need to finish this work. And it was hard. I didn't know what to do. So ultimately, what I landed on was simulating this, but I
Mm-hmm.
realized they also had a cluster of mini supercomputers in there with GPUs. I was like, well, if I run this certain parts of the code, the parallel intensive parts of the code in the GPU by using one command, just parallelize them, it
Mm-hmm.
runs faster. Bro, it was like a eureka moment. I was like, what? So I literally wrote it up and I
Mm-hmm.
got to present this research. I got some IEEE publications. I got to present and travel around sharing this research and all in aspirations of getting a job. I had two Microsoft rejections. I had some IT background. I had a thesis that probably nobody wanted to was super interested in at the time because it was
Mm-hmm.
a combination of GPU computing,
Oh.
wireless sensor networks, all the iPhones and the iWatches and stuff that you see now. Those were
Mm-hmm.
actually simulated what I was simulating on my system at the time. No one thinks you could wear those wearable devices, but they had to
Wow.
be done that way before. And yeah, at the time, those opportunities to present led me all around the US, and I also even got some international publications to present this research. Now everything is GPU computing. Now you painted pictures on your screens in any
Mm-hmm.
way. It's really amplified. But at the time, it was not. It's too much in the forefront because of the error handling scenarios, as you can imagine, as well too. And I remember I was traveling that entire summer, going to lots of conferences, and there were two conferences in my graduating semester, was summer of 2013, that I went to. One was at Oak Ridge National Lab, where they had the
Wow.
fastest supercomputer at the time, Titan.
Mm-hmm.
We did professional development. I also shared a bit about my research and how it tied into the industry piece of it. So I think I applied there, but I remember one part of that conference was telling a story. And they were like, you could be the most technical scientist, but if you can't express yourself about your work in 30 seconds or
Mm-hmm.
even a minute, it's up to nothing. So they said, who wants to go get slammed first, get their pitch tested? It was really pitching yourself. And I went and I was first. And I would never forget the experience of getting my pitch trashed aside, but walking away with exactly what I need to do to have a pitch to share about my work and just really create new opportunities for myself. The next conference beyond that was my last one that I think I went to in academia, and it was in Atlanta. And there was a couple companies, and I said, you know what? I have some newfound skills. I started practicing my pitch in the mirror in college as part of my application for jobs and stuff. I included a component of 30-second pitch for my research, and I tested it with one individual at that conference, and they were like, you might just be what we're looking for. And I had to go through the interview processes and stuff, but I was able to somewhat hook them. All those preconceived notions of Google is not good for me, I targeted this opportunity, which was IT residency. I felt like it was gifted to me.
Yes.
Ended up being the second cohort of this class because it persists throughout the globe in different places. There's New York, there's Sydney, there's California. I actually got my offer to go to California, but I wanted to stay in New York because I just love the city. I could get my roti. I don't know if I could get a roti in California, bro. So, so all in all, my pitch, understanding how I could be valuable to this company, coalescing all those different things into a package and using that with the individual who is still a great friend of mine, a great mentor. She was the lead of the program, and they were like, "Hey, we got to get you in." I still went through and had to prepare and did the interviews, but there was a sort of confidence that happened with me when you could really talk about your stuff in a matter of a few minutes, and it takes some practice. And it was valuable. It pretty much unlocked a whole new phase of my life, not overcoming the feelings of rejections that I had, like saying tech is not for me, because it happens, man. Even to be frank, there were some opportunities that came my way, and folks said, "Hey, you got to cut your hairs." I have some long flowing locks, and there were folks that said to be in this role, you have to cut your hair, and I had to make some tough decisions. Like I am not my hair. I could give you work, but this has nothing to do with me. Sometimes I even forget I have my hair back here and stuff. But all in all, it worked out. Got that opportunity, and since then, the plane has sort of taken off. I was able to continue to do good work there, and hence move on to other opportunities within Google. Ultimately, landing in where I am as a program manager, and with so much to do, but continuously growing and learning. And it's not easy, but I'm using the things I've learned before, persistence and resilience. I just show up each day, man, and try to give my best. Sorry,
Now you're bad. Take it. You're bad.
Never.
The reason why I think your story is inspiring is there's a lot of work that you did, and I think you were secretly a farmer the whole time in growing your roots and planting and providing a little bit of water. The Microsoft was probably, some extra hot sun in the day, and it mashed up your plants, so you had to start over. And I think as an international student, your dream to some degree when you become an international student is to hopefully achieve the ability to work in this place that rewards your opportunity in different ways. And based on your effort, you can get, essentially exponential upside depending on how you sort of frame it. So, failing a Microsoft interview, not maybe wanting to, at least for me, not wanting to go back to school. So like my PhD, I didn't want to do a damn PhD. And people are like, "Oh, you really like school?" I'm like, "No, I hate school. I legit just don't like it because I struggle to learn." So anyway, in my master's, you fly out for your interview, you're feeling good, right? Everything, life is done, right? I'm done with school, time to go and work, and Microsoft got open all the doors to me. And, you have Caribbean friends as well that you've seen them super successful and you've seen how they live in. Boy, life feeling good. And, it's kind of crazy. And I think this comes back to growth, and this comes back to waiting the time for your time to come. When I got rejected, even like I knew everyone who would have potentially gotten an offer, and everyone there got an offer except for me. And, as an international student, and for those who didn't live the international student life, once you start the degree, you have to finish. Otherwise you get deported, right? That's like the rule. So when I fail, and my advisor was like, "Listen, well, I have 1 year funding for your PhD, And if you're thinking about doing this, you better do it now. And jumping into something unknown, like PhD is not like a master's where, okay, it's 2 years and you're guaranteed to be finished. Like PhD, you're not guaranteed to finish. This is completely open-ended. So I really resonate with your life, top of the world. You fly out there, you see this big tech company, and then it just snatched away. And you wait this very long time, putting in a lot of work, and you're hoping and honing your pitch. And the other thing I wanted to highlight there in your story is you honed your pitch. That 30-second pitch allowed you to get access to Google. So you were prepared for a particular opportunity. And I think I had a similar experience. I have many interests, and as an international student, you have to finish school first. Like that's the main priority. Nobody care about what you like and what your passions are. I usually say like following your passion is like an American thing, because otherwise there's so much other things that you have to take care of that you spend your passion as basket weaving and nobody paying you for that in the Caribbean, right? You might sit on the side of the road, but you ain't getting a good living. So anyway, let me roll with this. So honing your pitch, I met this business professor. So being from the Caribbean, you're talking to everybody, and you maybe have this inclination of doing something entrepreneurial. And I didn't necessarily have a business background. I wasn't in the business school. So I entered the pitch competition. So I'm like, okay, let me go and pitch. So I was part of this team, and we were building some healthcare product where you could see the person through the television or through some iPad or something, basically like telemedicine. And we didn't have a product. We just had a pitch, and the pitch was me. And I remember presenting that the night before. I rehearsed it at least 50 something times. So you get to the hotel, things are good. But you said you did it in front of the mirror. So I was in front of the mirror. I recorded it. I was listening to it, drilling it into my brain over and over and over. And we were competing against all the schools in Florida. And we had no product. Everybody else had product. Yeah. People had funding, like patents and shit out already. And we were able to come second place just because of the quality of the pitch. And I highlight that particular example because if you are able to pitch yourself well, there are opportunities out there for you that certain doors could open. So, kudos to you for putting in that work and going through the editing process. That's the other part that I think people really struggle with, is being beat down and understanding that the beat down process is really a building up process and removing, and I'll come back to your farming example, actually like cutting away all the dead branches that you have so that all of the effort that you have inside of you can actually push towards sort of your growth. So yeah, inspired by a story of both rejection and resilience there.
Humble there, brother. And just following on to what you mentioned, around balancing your passions. I like to think of it as the P's. There's lots of P's you can use there, but all positive towards you. I like to think of progress over perfection.
Okay.
As something that grounds me. And in addition to purpose over passion. So you can have a passion, like you say, basket weaving. That's your passion, you enjoy it. But what's the purpose of it? Are you making baskets to help folks with their laundry day by day? So always try to think of purpose involved in your passion can really help you, bring peace. So lots of peace. Because my name is Paul, you can have that. But all in all, good vibes, man. Yeah, so yeah, that's life. Being able to take whatever comes at you and make the best of it.
Yes. So I wanted, I didn't get to ask Larry Hercules, who also has long hair like yourself. And I've actually had friends who had their hair like that, and they were told, hey, you need to cut this in order for you to continue in your career. So what is some advice that you have for others who have a RAS that, what is your mindset as you think about this? People might view this as not professional. How would you navigate that? Because I do find that quite cool that you're able to, you held your own there. So
yeah, not to be cliche, but I often think of the India Irie quote with it. I am not my hair. I honestly sometimes forget that I am actually not my hair. Okay. And that my hair is even back there. until someone says, "Hey, you're here so long," and I was like, "Oh man, I forget I have to navigate this." And I would go all over the place. I travel all over, bro. I actually was in the Middle East a couple of weeks back, and so many people fascinated by it, which is like surprising to me, because I actually don't think about it for any style.
Yes.
If I tell you the true reason I started to grow my hair. In college, I did a cost analysis of getting a haircut for the 4 years I was in college. I had budget to think of, you know what I mean? Haircuts were about $15-20 per week. You want to stay clean? And in another way, I had some inner tones of Sizzler growing up here in the Caribbean, unlocking my consciousness within, knowing that you could be who you want to be. You don't need to look a certain way. Just be who you want to be and just live your life and let your work. The last piece is to really let your work speak for itself. There are stereotypes, there are generalizations associated with my appearance, which I've learned to navigate. And I use it as an opportunity to teach others, really share what I just shared around. In college, I started decades back, a decade and more, because I really didn't want to have to get a haircut. Also don't mind being called like Rastaman and all of that stuff. I'm not into the religion or all of that. But essentially, it allows me to feel like I can be me. Yes. This is who I am, and I'm not tethered to it. If someday I come and say, you know what, I don't want me here anymore, I am okay. I could go cold turkey and just
you're still
and just be me. But I actually take great like I'm humbled to be in a position to show people that you could success is a journey, but you could have a successful journey in places that are not commonplace or things that people imagine you wouldn't naturally do. I enjoy being me in those spaces. For example, like in the White House and stuff like that. No one can say, hey, no, not just Peter Tosh is the only Rastaman in the White House and all of that stuff. You could be that too. You just have to know who you are and just be okay being you. Really, really in these times, trying to be as graceful with yourself as possible. So that's really it for me. But it all started for budget purposes. I mean, I know I could not afford to get a haircut. I needed to be clean, and there's always a rough stage that you go through.
Yes.
Overcoming that could help prepare you for life in general. And Larry, big up Mr. Hercules. I'm sure he could. It's always interesting to hear about that rough stage for folks, because there's always a period where you can't do anything with your locks, but you need to be what's perceived to be presentable, and just being okay being you and defending yourself for future whatever it is. It unlocks within you by not having to navigate that. It unlocks things that you can find in many, many people who go through that journey. And I can't even put it much into words. It's just a vibe. It's just a sensation that you can get, and you could, at least from my understanding, identify that folks that have their locks and okay with it.
Yeah. No, that's vibes, and I wanted to make sure and highlight that, because I do have friends that they come to that intersection, and some have taken it off, some have kept it, and I want to make sure and highlight, at least as you're saying, be who you are and let your work speak for itself. So I'm very happy that you highlighted that, because I think oftentimes people might identify too much with maybe how they look, and hey, this is me in like the professional environment, and to some degree not focus on the quality of their work versus, hey, hello, in this professional environment, bad, you can't touch my hair, and not necessarily your hair, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, that was a great.
Just ignorance, man. Yeah.
So I picked up a lot of advice from you in the thread. So if you can summarize it, what is one piece of advice you have for a high schooler, a college student, and a professional? And this could, think of folks at home who may not in their opportunity structure like get to work for one of these big companies. However, they could work for another global tech company as well. And yeah, just maybe either recap the lessons or share new ones.
Yeah, I actually thought about that, and I'm a writer, so I write stuff down. And for high schooler, that's usually a time where you're pre-adolescent and you think you know everything. But I like to remind high schoolers, because I wouldn't say I had the easiest time in high school navigating myself, how should I say, family, your background, like things that may have been done in the past, accepting that as standard. I worked in the bank,
Okay.
and there was in some ways there was this notion that you have a good job. Why are you going and go to school and go
Whoa.
college and all of that? But to your question, tough times don't last, but tough people do. So I sort of use that to guide me in high school. It's never going to be easy, but you know that you have what it takes to keep on keeping on. So
Yes.
for high schoolers, especially when you're dealing with your metaphysical changes, your body going through changes as well, hormonal, and you really think, and I say, but I know everything, but the world is going to come at you so quickly. So being able to navigate that, know that wow, this time will get tough, but you can make it through, can help you go a long way. And the inner tools I mentioned today around resilience and persistence stem from that, knowing that you don't always have to be tough, but just know that you could make it regardless of what. Just show up each day by day. For professionals, I like to say pay it forward.
Okay.
You never know how what you're doing now, or how what you're giving to the world now, what the cost of that is in future. It doesn't even need to be funds. It could just be time and resources. And I look back at some of your the past interviews, and Mandela mentioned something that stuck with me: compounding. These things compound. When you pay it forward, those things really do compound. You give some time to have a career chat, that could go a long way. One day,
Yes.
some kid might look up to you and say, "Hey, I saw you talk to me when I was in high school way back, and what you told me really helped to change my life." The experience that I mentioned in with um going into the White House and sharing that product. I got to do that in many schools in the US, even in the UK, even in the Caribbean. And I would never forget, in my old primary school, I went back Carapo RC doing the same thing and sent me back to pay it forward. We did a tour of the Giza pyramids in Egypt, a virtual tour. Imagine all your life. And Carapo, what's interesting it is there's horse round, it's also close to the airport. So we'd see the airplanes going day by day by. It's close to Piarco. One young man came up to me afterwards and said, "I felt like I just flew across the globe. Thank you." Just from that one experience, just by me saying, you know what, kids in Trinidad will probably benefit from this. Let me just go show it. Not for any cost, not to say that I did it, not because I want social media likes, but just because maybe for that same purpose, it can help someone see themselves in different scenarios. So really just paying it forward, whatever that payment, whatever you can provide, but it goes a long way. So professionals, just pay it forward. And for not so mature, or folks that are not, their career hasn't fully matured just yet, just know that it's never going to be easy. Things would seem tough, but they're always new. Just give yourselves grace and know that tough times won't last. Tough people do. Hold firm.
No, that's whew. I think that last story there struck a chord, because one of my secret reasons for doing this podcast, and we were able to do that program at home, and I saw
Next
students, next gen, and I saw students that had financial means, and I saw students that did not have financial means. And my life has been so blessed to come here to the States. I now work for the top machine learning company in the world. I've been able to get education. And I think the hard part that sits with me is there's some people who will never get these opportunities, no matter how hard it, not for lack of effort. And not necessarily like, we call system and all that type of stuff, right? But, that story where you said this, you're so close to the airport and you're seeing all these planes flying out every day. And sometimes it's so close, yet it is so far. So I hope that at least those of you that are listening, as you progress in your own career, I think that pay it forward is truly the thing to do, right? No matter how much money, the more money I've gone, pay it forward some more, and I think even in your flexing, in you showing off things that you have, like you were saying, it's not to show off, but it's really to inspire, to say that, hey, this thing is possible. And You hit me hard with that one because every time I interview someone, my secret hope is that someone at home who never thought that they could achieve something more gets that ability or gets that just little seed in their mind that they could grow into a big acorn tree, right? And they learn to water that. And the beauty of, I don't want to call it Web3 world, but the beauty of the internet-enabled age is you can connect to anyone around the world. So earlier you had said, if I am the best Karaili farmer, and for everyone listening, like Karaili is a type of vegetable, and not the best tasting one either. if I'm
Good for you.
it is good. That's true. If you're one of those people who are world renowned, you can get discovered, which is really the beauty of the age that you're in. So, this was good. And my last question there is, what 3 books do you recommend?
So I am an avid reader, and I'm one of those that sometimes I read multiple books all at the same time. I don't always finish them, but I kind of get things from different books and reading multiple. One of them that I would definitely recommend that I keep close to me is How to Get Your Point Across in 30 Seconds or Less. It's Milo O. Frank. That is, especially in my core day to day, I actually lean on this book a lot because you would read a long paper and you have to digest all of that and share it with others. So it just has some tools to help you really become more effective by getting your point across quickly. And I hope that I actually had it here to give it a reread today, but I hope it was effective. But I don't know. I actually did not get a chance to open it in preparation. Another one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That one is a great read, and I often look back at that one often. Another book, and I actually have a few here. This one, I think I'd share another one for professionals, early professionals, the first 90 days.
Oh.
Are you familiar with it?
No, I wish I had that book in some of my jobs.
Yeah, I actually got it recently, but I wish I had it when I first started a role. And it's something that can equip you with things to really have impact within your first 90 days and set you up for future success.
Okay.
Identify something, build great rapport with your team, and really show that you could get the job done in using something small, so that more things come your way. So I'd leave those 3: the first 90 days, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and of course this fresh one that I keep close to me, How to Get Your Point Across in 30 Seconds. A bit of diverse array of selections, but I have many to choose from. I thought those were probably the most appropriate that I could share now.
Nice. Do you ever watch? So I have this bookcase of books. I have another one in the living room. I have another one in my bedroom. Like, do you ever just walk past them? I'm like, wow, I should be reading all of these. Oh, vibes. Okay.
With my speakers too. I didn't even touch on my DJ career. Music helped me a lot in college. There was no soca, so I was actually a reader for 10 years, and those skills I actually use sometimes when I go into a meeting with tough meetings. I actually think of myself as DJ Dion. Right about now, Master, this is DJ Dion coming to you live and direct. We are going to have a good meeting. We're here to talk about XYZ. And I sort of get out of any preconceived notions I may have, fight imposter syndrome by using the things that I kind of already know. So, Mark Mayu, it was a pleasure. Dr. Mark Mayu, may I correct myself? Thank you. This was the Caribbean Data Science Podcast. Great stuff. Check it out. Dion Paul, signing out.
Wait, I don't call it. Hey, Ole, that's the new introduction coming in. Nah, that was bad, dog. Well, vibes, once again, we'll probably have a part 2 on the music, because I think music is a very interesting facet of your career. And I find that folks that are into music have a dynamicism about them that they have access to that maybe other people don't. Did you want to maybe share something on that real quick? I know we have time here.
So I can talk about music, and I love it so much. Music and football are my 2 things, but I love it so much that I actually have the only equipment that I have are my speakers. I gave all my equipment away just so I could build new skills, but I just know that I would come back to music one day. And for now, we actually salivate those passions. Is a part of a group within Google called Breakbeat Code, where we actually teach students to produce music all by written code. So you learn Python, and that Python actually produces music tracks on a platform called AirSketch. So I get to wet the palettes a bit, but I have no music equipment except these two speakers that you just saw. Because I'm not afraid that I just know music is a universal language, man. And I'm learning skills now so that I can hopefully just translate all of these different things and re-amplify my message through music. So I'm still very much connected into it, not directly, but I'm looking forward to that part too, and hearing the progress from here. I would also like to look back and see, based on what I said now, which will be dead in future, going through my life, where that has resulted. So yeah, we'll hold that thought for now.
Yeah, man. Blessings. All right. Appreciate the time. Easy.
Much thanks. Thank you again, Mark. Pleasure. Cheers.